Hello.
Hi, Wide Awake. Hi,
Hi.
Karen.
I've been actually reviewing and going back through a lot of my observations and really paying attention to a lot of the details in them. And I'm really figuring a lot of the stuff out the best I can. And yeah, I wanted to try to put things in simple terms. Um, you know, not make it really complicated because I really don't think it's as complicated as what a lot of people think it is. And they're always trying to throw math in there to tell you that it's refraction pulling something up over the curve, and oh, you need to know this, you need to know that, and this is why you have this, and this is why you have that. But when you're looking at it in a simpler term, or in a simpler view, um, things seem to start clicking when I started paying attention to a lot of the details, like where the visible water line is in comparison to a lot of the cracks. Yeah, the mirroring, also the background. Why people say, well, why don't you see more water behind it? And that's part of the mirroring effect that occurs. And I also think that this mirroring effect that occurs also causes what I want to call a like a ramp up of a sort. In other words, it's almost like the glare off the water becomes a surface, a mirroring surface, and the farther it goes out, or the heavier the mirroring is, the more the distortion, and the more the objects seem to vanish much faster than on a good day of visibility, where you can definitely tell the difference between good visibility and bad. A lot less distortion when you have good visibility. But there's some different things that occur when you have good visibility too. And this is what I was noticing in a lot of my videos. Like I have one video where I uh, do the sun. The sun appears to set, and then I find this boat that's moving across the water, but it's really far out there, and it looks, or it appears like it has the lower portion of the boat cut off. But this is what's funny: as the boat gets closer and closer to me, all of a sudden you can see the whole boat, you can see the people in the back of the boat, and as it gets even closer, all of a sudden you see this what I call the mirroring line, and all of a sudden this boat drops back into this mirroring line, which cuts the bottom of the boat off and everything, but the boat's really close to you. As far as my zoom of my camera, it's like it's a lot bigger than what it was when I had good visibility, and you could see the people in the back of the boat and everything. I recently posted that on my channel, but I don't think I posted the complete video. Maybe I did, but it's obvious that something's occurring out there, optical, and not mathematical. It's more of an optical illusion, and that's what I think. Even the sun is. It is the grand illusion. The sunset is a grand illusion, because a lot of people don't see it like I see it, because I'm of course zoomed in on it. But there's some days where when you have really good visibility, the sun gets to the horizon and then flattens out. It becomes this oblate, circle, which I'm pretty much convinced that the sun is pretty much being projected, and what we're seeing is just a projection of the sun. Oh yes, I have a lot of footage with the sun flashing green. Yeah, let me see if I can throw something on the screen here. Let me see if I can share my screen. Video will pop up on it. Okay, but it won't. It's not showing up on the whole screen, is it? It's just showing up in the. Oh, there we go. Okay, is that all right? Can people see that? Okay. I mean, let me just uh, move this along a little bit, speed it up. Bird rack here, you can clearly see that I have good visibility up to that point. Um, and I mean, you can honestly see all the little slots that goes across. There's like 7 horizontal beams that go across it. Um, but right, a perfect circle. I mean, this is oblong that's flattened out. I call this. Oh, this right here. Yeah, let me get rid of that. Get. Yeah, I know. I wish I wouldn't be getting these. Now all of a sudden they're gonna pop up and I'm gonna have to delete a bunch of them. Yeah, they didn't now. But you see that this is a compressed, and you see this uh, uh, this line across the bottom that's orange of the sun. I really feel as if that's all reflection. Um, but here after this, let's take it down here. I mean, you see boats going in front of it, and here's a little bit of a green flash that you'll see. I've got ones that are more, uh, wow, a lot better than this actually. I think that light that you were seeing right at the end there is all reflective light, and that's one of the things that I see occurring in some of these is that uh, we get a lot of reflection. Here's right, and I have yeah, it's just it's an illusion, and we know that illusionists use mirrors to perform their magic tricks, right? And that's part of what's going on. Is there's uh, some type of a mirroring effect that occurs, like I showed with some of the mirrors that I have. I mean, I made my own concave convex mirror where I can bend it and shape it to where it can make things disappear. I mean, you walk toward it and your whole your face disappears into the reflection, and that's kind of what we see. Well, not kind of, but pretty much what we see out over the water a lot when there's heavy nearing. And just to watch this now, this is this boat. Now I'm going to speed this along. This is this boat, um, and I'm filming him from. Uh, I'm filming this boat from Pine Island. So as I speed this boat up, you start seeing more and more and more of it, right? Which I know that the waves are actually blocking this boat out, and I have my reasons for saying that, and hopefully I can get to that in this presentation. But you see, as the boat starts coming in, uh, he starts to be where you can actually see the boat um, pretty well. And here's the Bayport rack, and it's going to go by it. And you can see how far away this boat is. Now, this boat's coming from the south of me, coming back toward the east. Let me put this other part on. Now, I'm going to speak a delay. They're seeing the same thing, but they're seeing a delay of what I'm seeing. Um, Plus, they're also not seeing a zoomed in approach. But this rack right here is Billy Steele's rack. And of course, you look at it and you say, well, of course, it's being cut off by the curvature of Earth. But actually, I can show you videos or even pictures of when I was even at a lower perspective of this rack actually being perfectly in the water, pretty much. Video too. I've put video out about this. Now this was a mistake, though. I had mistaken the identity of this rack a few months ago, and really kind of messed me up. But I've since then have corrected all of those mistakes and got the right markers on them. Matter of fact, I even went out to all of these racks and got their location, got their coordinates, and now I'm just working on trying to figure out the difference between the coordinates between Google Earth and the coordinates you get off your GPS. You have to convert them, which I think is stupid. I think it's crazy that you have to convert. I have to convert my coordinates to fit Google Earth's coordinates. Shouldn't they be the same? um, now, let me show you this spot right here. See this spot on the screen where I paused it? You can see this like little layer right here going across. Now what happens, this is like the mirror, the actual beginning of how this water transitions into this mirroring. So I'm gonna bring it along here, and actually this is the Hernando Beach rack, and you can actually see some of the mirroring in it right here. It's all of a sudden in the mirror. Now this boat has gotten much closer to me, but this is what happens when it gets to this mirroring area. It's kind of funny when you watch it, because all of a sudden now you get this whole change, and this is the same boat that I've been following all the way in from offshore. And you get them, and all of a sudden you can see everything with the boat, right? I mean, you can see the boat, you can see the people on the boat, and then when it gets closer to me, this kind of stuff right here happens, where now all of a sudden the boat's being cut off by that mirroring. But look how big that boat is. That boat is still really big, but it's being cut off. And now I've gone to some, I mean, you can watch this video on my channel too. I recently posted this, which is, like I said, pretty strange when you start doing these comparisons and you see where certain things are at. Now let me switch over here to this other video. Let me see here. I think it's 11/19 was the date. I get over here on these, and I want to show you this video. Here we go. Now, if you look, I know it's a little bit windy this day, so there's some shaking going on. But if you look, you can see this light diffraction occurring at the surface of the water. And if you look right where the boat is, now this boat is actually on the other side of the Hernando Beach bird rack, which that bird rack is 5 to 6 miles from my location. When I went to go out to get all the coordinates for these bird racks, when I went from Bill Watts to here, I had to go southward at least another 2 miles. And we already know, well, I know for sure that Bill Watts is about 3.5 miles from my location. From the Bayport area. Now I'm filming this from Pine Island, which I'm actually 2 miles further north. Actually, maybe 1.5 miles, because I'm on kind of diagonal in a sense, from my spot that I filmed from Bayport. But you can see this, what I call a refraction line. And also you can kind of see how this water is transitioning into that mirroring effect. Look at how that light is flashing off of the water, how reflective the water is. Light. Yes, I mean, I think that there is a lot of, you know, magnetism, electromagnetism, everything we see, you know, is cannot be explained with math. And that's one of the things I try to say. Math cannot explain all of these things that we're seeing, simply because it just can't. Like I said, there's too many combinations of effects that are occurring at different times. You could have one or two different effects occurring with another effect, or you could have three or four different effects occurring. And that's one of the things I've been noticing as I've been going through some of my videos, is I get some of these crazy observations. Like sometimes Billy or Hernando Beach rack right here looks either bigger or it could look smaller with still good visibility. But then I have some that have heavy distortion. Actually, that's the light. There's a light up there, and that's it's just a battery box with a light on it. So what you're seeing at the very top of that rack is just a light in a battery box. Have to and a panel up for a solar panel for collecting, you know, solar light, electric. And you know, look at that boat when it goes by. Did you see how the wake blocked that whole boat out? I mean, let's pause that for a second and bring that big boat back. And this is why I say that a lot of times people don't realize how much that just that wake alone blocks out farther different objects. I mean, farther objects that are farther away. So you can see that the waves that are in front of that little boat right now are actually lapping up over that boat and blocking some of that boat out. Especially when you're right in the rays of the sun, which the sun's directly above us right here. You know, up. So that's actually causing in the background. And you know, I get asked questions like, you know, well, why do I always see a sky back here? Well, what you're seeing is the mirroring of the sky behind you or beyond, because everything beyond the visible water, as far as where that water goes, is being it's a mirror, and it's just mirroring everything above it. And that's partly what causes some of this compression too that we see in some of these videos, or some of my observations that I see. I'm gonna move this along here a little bit, but you see how the brighter it is, you know, you get this illuminated background, and then people. This is what I wanted to show you. Little extra features that I like. One is you can turn your exposure compensation up and down while you're actually filming. So I can brighten the screen or darken the screen, and that does help see through some of that lighting. That, you know, I always say that light can blind you, and you know, you can't see past that light. Here's you know, if you, let me see here, let me click on this one. But you can see some of these again, when they're in that light, you can see how that light diffracting or the light propagating off the water also will block out the bottom portion of the boat. You know, everybody's always saying, oh, the boat's getting blocked out by the curvature of Earth. No, it's getting blocked out by other effects. Number one, the biggest thing is because of our angle to it. These waves that are near the boat will actually start blocking out the bottom of the boat, not curvature of Earth. Yeah, all has to do with that angular resolution. I mean, you can see even this distortion. Um, it it almost makes things look invisible at times. I mean, like parent, you can see through them. And that's when, you know, the boat gets farther and farther away. Like right here, you can see some of the ropes on the boat. But if it gets farther away, you no longer see those ropes on the boat. And that's just because it's like, you know, the bug on the wall. The farther you get away from the wall, you no longer see the bug, but the bug's still there. You know what I mean? It's still there, but you just can't see it. It's at that vanishing point for its perspective size. And that's one of the things I don't think a lot of people take into consideration is, you know, that sky. Let me see here. I got another video I want to show, which kind of is a little bit, maybe a little bit easier to see this water transitioning into the mirror. 1230. I mean, I've got I got 3 4-terabyte hard drives, and I got 1 2-terabyte hard drives, and I also lost 1 terabyte hard drive or a 2-terabyte hard drive that I need to try to recover, because it had some really good stuff on it. Matter of fact, well, I had some of my first original videos, which I try to save everything. You know, my wife says, "Why do you save all that stuff?" I said, "Because I want to be able to refer back to it and review it and study it." That's one of the big things that I like to do with my stuff is take the time out to really study it and watch it more than one time. I think it was this one right here, right here. Look how this water, now you can see it right here. You know, you can see the water above here, and this is just it's almost like a transparent water, but you can actually see it up above, but you can see the separation, and that's just how that water is just transitioning from, you know, being a reflective you know, water. I mean, actually see the visible water, and then it transitions into the mirror. Yeah, and when we see these reflections, are reflecting. Yes, there's miles in that reflection underneath the boat. That reflection goes for miles, believe it or not. It's kind of hard to show, but if you was to do increments, you know, when I show a certain distance to something, like when I'm showing the channel markers that are out in front of the Hernando Beach Islands, those channel markers are like 3 miles away from me, 3.5 miles away, and then the island's 4.84 miles. So it's almost like 2 miles in this tiny little sliver of water, you know, that you can visually see. And then as you go further out, those increments, you start splitting them in half, and you get, you know, more and more and more miles within a tiny little sliver. Um, Now, back here, and you can see that these objects are being cut off, but that's part of the illusions that we get from light. Light helps create this illusion. Now, one of the things that I wanted to show was this, because we get fog here in Florida sometimes, and when we get this fog, can get illuminated by the light. And when you think about driving your car on a foggy night, you don't turn your high beams on when there's, real thick, heavy fog out, right? Because it illuminates the fog, and all you see is nothing but a big white sheet of fog in front of you. So you always use your low beams, and at least you can see maybe, depending on how heavy that fog is, how thick, and what is, it determines how far you're going to be able to see. But what is fog made of? Water molecules, right? So we got these water molecules that get illuminated by the sun's light, and it creates this curtain. And this curtain can, actually be up close, or it can be far away. And what I mean by that is, sometimes I have this mirroring occur a mile away from me, and then sometimes I have it occur, 11 miles away from me. And I can see objects 11 miles away. Cutter's Rock is one of those that's 11 miles away. But the more and more heavy evaporation rate or humidity depends on how far you can actually see, or where this curtain will drop on you and blind you from that point on. In other words, you're getting the same effect up close as you are when you got good visibility and you can see farther. That same curtain, or that same effect that you get on those heavy mirroring days where everything's being cut off at a short distance, it's occurring at a long distance too. So everything beyond that visible water is being mirrored, and it's just mirroring the sky again. That's actually some rocks sitting out there with a bunch of birds sitting on them. And this is being cut off real close to me. Yeah, over water. And it's funny because as it yeah, this sign right here is real, yeah, this sign's real close to me right here. It's not that far away. Um, Maybe 50, 60 yards at the most. I don't even think it's that far. But I mean, all of a sudden, this fog gets in there so thick that you cannot even see hardly past that sign. Well, that's the same thing that we see when we're looking out farther out into the horizon. This white out, or this illuminated sky, is the curtain that blocks you off, and it limits your visibility. In other words, when I have 10 miles of visibility and I can see, or 11 miles of visibility and I can see Cutter's Rock, but this same blockage happens beyond Cutter's Rock. Um, if that makes sense. I mean, it is illuminated sky. I mean, obviously you can tell that that was getting illuminated by the light from the sun. You boil water, and say you got it in you don't have your little hood light on your stove. You really don't see that water steaming up out of that pot until you turn that light on, and then the steam gets illuminated, and then you get to see that, hey, my water's boiling. um, just the simple things, like I said, that I try to just try to make simple, common sense out of it. I try to make sense out of it using my common senses. Now, this was, I wanted to kind of compare, let's see, this video, 2727. This was a day I had an extremely low tide. And the observation deck that they have at Pine Island is, you know, a good reference point for me to turn around and point back to. But I think I showed this on our last video that we were doing, but or the last time I was on your chat, I showed some of this. And all of this footage has been put on my channel for those that want to use it maybe to do some serious research. But this is just to kind of show you, this was how shallow or how far out the tide went this day. And these are the 3 islands north of me that I also filmed. Now, you can obviously see that you can see these really well for this day. I mean, the visibility was excellent. Now, what I'd like to do is, this was actually with the P1000, which sometimes I feel as if it gives me too much zoom, and I lose some of the detail because it's really harder to focus in on the detail of this. But on this, at the same time that I was filming this with my P1000, I was also using the B700 video camera from Nikon, and let me see if I can pick out the right one. And I was also, you know, more or less using the B700 to focus in on these islands right here. And the B700 is, with the camera, is about 34 inches. It's a little taller than the one I had the P1000 on. It's only at 28 inches. But, you know, as you watch this, I mean, I think I even find, you'll see, that's the Crystal River Power Plant, and that's 27 miles away. I didn't stay on it. I don't even know if I saw it. Sometimes you can't even see it because of that illuminated haze. I want to call it illuminated haze, but it's water molecules. Haze is the same thing as water molecules in the air, or humidity, whichever you want to, whatever term you want to use. That's the same way with like I brought up looming, and somebody said, you know, looming is a shill word. Well, looming, lensing, magnifying, whichever you prefer to use, you know, they're pretty much all the same. It's just magnifying and pulling things in closer to you, which also drops everything. As far as if you was to use take a pair of glasses and hold in front of you, say they got bifocal lens, and you know, find an object and you look at it with your regular eyes and then pull that set of glasses up in front of you, you'll see how it pulls things in and then drops things down because of the magnification of it. Let me see. I don't know if I got to that. I don't think this is the right video that I wanted to show. It's the right one, but let me see here. You can see how here it is. I mean, did you see that giant walk by too? I mean, that was a giant lady. Now you can see the shoreline of this island. Exactly how far away this island is, Karen, I don't know. But if they're the islands that I suspect they are, which I'm soon going to do some investigation in my boat on these islands, I'm going to take my boat up and try to determine the actual distance to these, because I think I'm seeing a very long distance. And if I'm seeing the shoreline like I'm seeing here, and as clear as I'm seeing it, it's not refraction that's pulling it up. This is just a case of excellent visibility and me being able to see everything that's out there without all of the other mirroring effects that occur. And I'm like, look, Mom, no mirroring. And when you don't have all that heavy mirroring, you can see things pretty darn good in the water out there, even miles and miles and miles away. Well, if these are the islands that I think they are, they're way up towards Chassahowiska, which these would have to be a good 10 miles away. Yeah, and that's hard to believe, but even in some of this footage, personally, me, I could make, well, these are rocks that stick out right here. These are rocks that are sticking out. And they're much closer to me than this island. And then if you look a little bit further back, you can see some rocks in between. This flashing in front of my screen is somebody's fixing to walk by little areas here. But in some of this footage, I could make out some other portions of land, but you got to realize that if you could see land beyond this, it's going to be so smashed down that it's just going to look like a dark line across the top of the water, which with the P1000, I could actually see that land. And like I said, I'm very familiar with this area because this is my old stomping ground for fishing. Did a lot of fishing up this way for years, but I never went out to measure these islands to determine how far they were, because at that time I really wasn't, I wasn't even into being a flat earther or even thinking Earth was flat. I always thought it was a joke in the beginning, and I was like everybody else. I went out to debunk it, and in the process of trying to debunk flat Earth, here all of a sudden I kind of turned around and became one. Now remember here that I'm at 34 inches above the water here with a B700 camera, which has only got 60 times zoom. But you can see as I'm scanning here how much these rocks right here block out the horizon. So it's blocking out miles and miles of horizon. Just these rocks right here that are not poking up but maybe 2-3 feet out of the water, but they look like they're mountains out there, but they're not. And that's part of what I say that kind of is occurring is the magnification effect, pulling these in closer to me. But I've got to actually take some more of my footage and cut little pieces and parts out and make comparisons to, like, just say Bayport bird rack. Just get a bunch of videos, little cuts of that bird rack, and show the different appearances, how it will appear during different types of visuality or visibility. The more you can, the more I can expose some of these effects, the more I think I can make people understand. Well, here's part of this. See this right here, just above? It kind of looks like distorted water. That is literally land right here. That is land way off in the distance. And the only reason I say this is because I know the area, and I know that there's land past this point right here, but it's so far away that, again, it's beyond that angular resolution where you can't resolve any detail out of it. Now, remember that right there, because I recently was back out there, and what I did was, instead of it being going out to the the water, or out there on the beach where it was really shallow, I said, hey, what about doing a comparison to where I'm up on the observation deck, so I could compare it to this time that I was down below. And let me see here. Which one was it? And this is funny too. You see these mullet jumping here on the shoreline, and this like looks like it's like right in my face. Like this is all being magnified, drawn into me, and being everything's kind of being hidden. Like the power plant is being drawn in closer to me than these islands, even though these islands are still being drawn in closer to me due to that magnification. But what I wanted to get to was these islands. Um, Now, see, look at these islands, even with me being up on top of that observation deck during a very, very low tide. Although I can see the islands in fairly good visit, I mean, they're not so distorted that you can't make them out. But, you know, I'm up 10 feet in comparison to the 34 inches. I might even be up higher than 10 feet because I know it's a low tide this day. And again, I'm into doing these comparisons. Now you can see how that mirroring effect is all mirrored out, and how this horizon all blends into the sky. Everything's just blending in. It's just a mirror reflection of everything above. So sometimes it doesn't matter how high you are. This mirroring effect always occurs. And again, I could be up high and it could be occurring a mile away, or it could be occurring 5 miles away or farther. Okay, does that make sense? I hope that makes, because in my videos I obviously see this plain and clear, how this water line here is what I call the last resolvable wave before it blends in to this mirroring. And here again in this video you can see this water transitioning into this mirroring. And like I contend that this mirroring actually has this ramp up effect that will cut bottoms of buildings off, boats off, anything that's within that. It's like it sinks into this liquid mirror because that's what it's like. It's like liquid mirror, or you could almost say it's like mercury over the water, because it's, I want to say atmospheric mirroring. But it's not from above here. We'd get an inverted image of this island above the real island. So this is the real island. What we got here, though, is a mirror image of what's above, below it. But if it was a phantom of Ghana, it would be the image of this island above it up here, which not too long ago I did post a video. The first video I ever got of a phantom Morgana that I ever did here in Florida, where it was really, really obvious. But again, you look at the difference between being up 10 feet compared to being at 34 inches. There is a big difference there. And obviously, as I zoom back here, you can tell I'm way up high. And look at the people out here. I also have some days where, let's see if I can find one real quick, because I know it's kind of hard to cram all of this stuff into an hour. Oh, I know what I wanted to show. Let me go back to one that I just did the other night. I think it was this one right here. This one was pretty crazy this one. Let me get it in focus here. I started getting, these clouds right here, and you know how they always say that. Well, here, you know what? I should have started it out with this one. They always say that these clouds are getting lit from the sun being underneath it, shining up to the bottom of these clouds. What I contend is that because the sun is behind these clouds, um, from my perspective, they're behind the clouds, but the sun is, thousands of miles from me. In other words, on an angle away from me. And what that light is doing, it's reflecting off the water somewhere out here in the Gulf and being reflected back to the clouds from underneath. Because you can obviously tell during this video that the sun was behind all of those clouds from my perspective. But that light is a long distance from me. Now, here's the thing, if we see the sun when it's directly above us, okay, say it's high noon, okay, and the sun's directly above you, and it takes, 6, 7, 8 hours to hit the horizon, and they're telling us that, the Earth's supposedly spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, then that means we watching the sun go 8,000 miles, over this area. So, but they say that we can only see 3.5 miles out or 3 miles out into the Gulf. Or a man standing 6 foot tall on the shoreline can only see 3 miles into the horizon. Well, if I'm watching that sun go 8,000 miles, how can that be that I'm only able to see 3 miles? See, that just doesn't compute. It doesn't make sense, except for us being taught this at young ages. At a young age, you never think about saying, well, what if the Earth ain't a spinning ball? We never thought about that. I was never taught this. And here's the Bayport rack. Look how distorted. Look how it looks like it's floating in the air. Now, this is from Bayport, too. I went to Bayport, which I shouldn't have a problem seeing the Bayport rack, but obviously you could tell that everything beyond this visible water is being mirrored. This is the halfway marker to Bayport bird rack, and it's I don't know, it's between a mile and a half away from me. It's not really truly a halfway marker, but we call it the halfway marker. At least I do. My fishing buddies, used to be fishing buddies. But what I want to kind of show you as we go along here, some of this footage, how this sky starts really changing, and you notice how this is all whited out again here in the background, and it's all mirrored out. I'd rather say it's mirrored out, not whited out, but it is in a sense whited out. And the brighter that sun is shining on that illumination or the water molecules in the air, the brighter this will become. Let me take us forward here. This was awesome right here. This is the sun shining through and lighting up some rain that was falling right here. It's illuminating that rain. But if you kind of look, you'll kind of see where that water or that light hits the water and then kind of reflects back up here a little in this footage. I want to post this because I can obviously see it in some of the footage, especially when I darken up the screen a little bit. But this thing was sending rays every which direction. See if I can find that part where I might have already passed. Uh, no, that's actually not rain. That is just a lot of the water molecules in the air. Um, it hardly rained on me at all up to a certain point, just before um, well, about a half an hour or so before the sun supposedly sets. I like to call it sun departure. It started raining, which I thought was cool too, because while I was doing, it's behind the cloud right here. Yeah, and while I was doing filming it with the P1000, I was also doing a time lapse with right here. Yeah, that's above. But you could just see how that light is illuminating everything there. Yeah, I think I passed that one spot. Oh no, there it is. Now you kind of look here, you could kind of see that light, the way that light is reflecting it. Somebody might also say that this could be rain, and it very well could be. But this is what I think. That light is hitting this water probably further. Much. I mean, it's not like it's hitting it right here, but it's hitting further out here in the Gulf and reflecting back up, being lit up. Sun being below the clouds. It's just perspective that they look like they're below the clouds. Again, the whole time I was, yeah. Here's another one where you can see this light looking like it's being reflected back up into the sky from way out here. It's getting reflected back up. It's just the angle, because the angle that light should be coming down should be this way, but we see this upward reflection, like it's reflecting away from the sun. And that's why I'm always looking at these details. And believe me, that's a lot of work too, because a lot of times I put them in my program and I slow them down and I watch them in slow motion and try to pick up as much detail as I can. Um, so it is a lot of time consumption trying to analyze these and come up with um, a simple explanation. Um, on this too. Oh, this is good, because as I start zooming in out here to the horizon, what you'll notice is some of these clouds. Let me move it along here. Uh, Also, birds. You see birds fly out of this mirror too. But look at how this mirror is. I mean, here's your cloud above, and then here's its reflection underneath. And actually, where that line should be is here, because it's being stretched out over miles. Yeah, we have to be powered by something. I don't think it's nuclear power. I I think it is electrical. And again, somebody's going to say, "Oh, well, see here, all these clouds are getting lit up because the sun's below the clouds." But what happened? Why were these all lit up before that sun was below the clouds? So it's it's not that at all. But I tell you, this night got awesome. Yeah, I mean, this lit up. I think some of these clouds are hundreds of miles away. Of course, especially down at the edge of the horizon, um, they've got to be hundreds, if not even thousands of miles away. But again, they're getting compressed too. Um, just like when I always say that if you look at the top, at a tabletop from above, you see the whole top of the table. But then when you start getting lower and you start getting eye level to the surface, that surface just becomes that little sliver. So we get to see more distance in the sky than we are on the floor. In other words, you can see more of the ceiling than you can of the floor because we are kind of like the bugs that are close to the floor. Yeah, like down all these clouds way down, way just above the water are the far, much, much, much further away. Uh, and I wanted to show this because this was actually, I kind of want to run through these. These were some balls just hanging in the sky. This is a little bit better here. I mean, you can see kind of this, how the above is still being illuminated up there because that blue was actually just dark black sky up above. Like I said, Karen, I do try to put things in a simpler terms um, because I know we can get into some really technical terms that can really turn the average person off, and they're like, I don't know what the heck. So again, I just try to make it as simple as possible. Simplicity, I think, like Occam's razor. The simplest answer is usually the correct answer, and that's the way I kind of try to look at a lot of stuff in the simplest way. Why make things more complicated than they are? Um, Again, as I was filming this, I was just amazed by how the light was illuminating portions of these clouds. And what was a big teller was the time lapse that I did loaded on YouTube. But I just kind of made a quick video so I could show you this time lapse that I took with the B700 um, on this same particular day or night of all of those crepuscular rays coming from the sun. But right here, you can see how this whole above this visible water line, this is all mirrored out, and you got a mirrored image of everything above below. But this is stretched out, like I said, for miles. And I would say that I would pick the higher side and not split it right in the very middle. I'd pick the higher side of it because I think that's how everything below this is. Like I said, it's stretched out for miles and kind of like smeared across the bottom. Well, their so-called science that we're spending. Well, maybe I'm not spending it 1,000 miles an hour here in Florida, but say it's 700 miles. So if it takes 8 hours for the sun to get here, 700 miles times 8 would be 56, 100 miles. So yeah, I think we're looking at the sun at being 1,000 miles or 5,000, 6,000 miles away. Uh, because otherwise, how are we seeing it for 8 hours when it's 12 noon and it's directly above us? If we're supposedly spinning at that speed, then we have to account for that in the so-called math that they want to use to say how far away the sun is. well, Earth may not even be the size that they say. Now, remember, two guys with sticks supposedly measured the shadows to come up with the circumference of Earth. You know, if Earth is flat, it may be, well, much bigger than what they are telling us. So we could actually be seeing the sun at a much farther distance. I don't think it's at a shorter distance. I think it's at a much farther distance, because I think a lot of the math we've been giving is fixed math to fit their model. They made the math to fit their model and only their model. As far as how high up it is, you know, I've really never claimed to make um, a claim to how far it actually is away from us. But you know, if I was to make a guesstimate, and that's exactly what it would be, is a guesstimate. I would guess probably that it's you know, 3,000 to 4,000 miles away when it's directly up. So we kind of do have to take that into consideration. I think we're in an enclosure. Well, that's why I say that I think the sun is just a projected image. It's like somebody on the outside of a dome with a laser light shining it and it moving across our sky. In other words, yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. It is pretty similar to exactly what you're saying, that our firmament, our dome, you know, if you will, we see is what we see, the reflection of the source light. In other words, the source light of the sun is outside of our realm. Um, in other words, we see this sun inside of our realm, but the source that it comes from is outside. In other words, it's a heavenly light. Um, you know, they say, you know, God created you know, the sun inside of the firmament, right? Well, it's inside of our firmament, but the actual source light is outside of the firmament, is the way I look at it. Yeah, exactly. This was here, let me get it past this part here. Let me get it past this. Like I said, I was making this video and I really didn't add no sound or music or nothing to it. And these all these pictures in my intro are videos or pictures that I took, that the gentleman that did my new intro, he used and did an excellent job on putting them together. So I got to thank his name. Now I wanted to real quick here make a few suggestions for you to have you know, interview some other people possibly. One is Soul Good, SAULGOODE. It's supposed to be like it's all good. It's all good. Um, but he does some excellent videos that I think he needs to um, get more publicity for the videos he does. Not a lot of them are not observational videos, but more, you know, in the turn, not not just a conspiracy. It's truth, but they want to hide it under this disguise of being a conspiracy. All right, let me start this out because I play the original video. I thought I went past this. This should come up here. Now this is the time lapse that I did Did you just watch a second ago? And I do the original video. This part to be the original video. And this was 50 minutes, you know, in 10 seconds right here. And then I said, well, let's slow this thing down. So I slowed it down as slow as I could in my program. I think it's like 30 times slower speed, but it's actually awesome. I'll just let it play out. But another one would be see if you can get Taboo Conspiracy on your channel. Man, I know he's done some really great stuff for the community. So he'd be a great person to have on your show. I think Flat Earth Warriors. Another one would be the Buzz Dev. He's doing some good computer simulation work on like the horizon and really kind of putting some math to it, along with Life is Short. I don't know if you had him on your show. He would be another good one. Man, there's a bunch of them. No Fanfare. He's done some really good stars videos, and wow, I have some good experiments he's done. You know, with like a dome. I want to say, yeah, I'll try to make a list for you and email you some. I really like to see some of these people get, um, you know, some more exposure. I know some of them lost and never got back the same amount of subscribers that they had originally, and that is really what YouTube wanted to do. Really is take away a lot of that stuff, you know, from us. Let's see here. Oh yeah, this one was another one that I recently put out. Like right here, obviously the sun's behind the clouds. You can see the hot spot here. But what I look at too, let me pause it right here, is this is Fiddler's Point, and it's really strange because I've seen Fiddler's Point where the water was mirroring way down at way before the island. But this particular day, the visibility was so good, you could see the water well above this point right here. And I actually had did a video where I used the virtual horizon to figure out approximately where this eye level should be. And it was pretty much right on the spot. I had it right here at this same area, and saying that that's where eye level is. And a lot of times you don't get to see this water in this eye level area because it's all being whited out like this right here, or mirrored, and all of this would be just reflecting the sky. Everything above, or even this boat, there's a little boat right here. That boat would be invisible because it would just be inside that mirroring zone or that whited out area, if that makes sense. I'm actually glad I found this footage right here because this was one of my, I almost think it was one of my best sun videos, because it does show how it's compressed and how far that horizon line actually is, and it does come up to that eye level. That was my main objective, was to always find where the actual horizon actually is. And now here's the sun popping out, you know, appearing to be below the clouds, but it only appears to be below the clouds because the sun's still lighting up the top of the cloud up here. And it's the reflected light off the water that's lighting these clouds up here. It has nothing to do with the sun being or appearing to be below these clouds. It's really not below these to be because of perspective. That's one thing I think a lot of the globe people, when it's above your head, it's definitely much closer. Yeah. Now, again, I recently posted this on my channel, um, and as you watch this sun, it's going to do the same thing. It just starts compressing. Look how it gets flat at the bottom here. It's almost like you taking a flashlight and holding it directly above your head, and then as it moves away, you see it directly above you as a circle, and as it moves away, you start to see that oblong lens of the flashlight, instead of, because you're not pointing it right at yourself, you're just running it straight away. Well, this would be what a flashlight would do, and the sun does act just like a spotlight or a flashlight, the way it distributes its light across the flat earth. And this is not, this is water all across here. This is water, and it's not being refracted up from behind the curve either, folks. And if you notice, you'll get this football effect here, where it gets a point here, which again, it's all being compressed. And I always say, I personally can see this shrinkage of the sun, but then you'll notice it at a flash. Watch it flash here. See how it do this little flash every now and then, like gets brighter, brighter. That every time it's going through these layers of the different density of the density of the water, and continues to appear the same size. But in fact, really what it's doing is it's getting smaller. And here's its reflection right here. And it's just vanishing within itself, just like one of the videos I did where I simulated the sun. I pointed my concave convex mirror at the sun and then did a time lapse of it, and it vanished into its own reflection, just like you'll see this does right here. It see how it just gets smaller and smaller. That's just getting smaller and smaller to the vanishing point right there. That's just the vanishing point. And yes, perspective, and sometimes it does. Is a projection. It's we have been going. Yeah, and it's hard to pack all of this information I got into, this short time frame. I kind of wanted to, let me see if I, yeah, I have, sure, we can set up another time. And, again, the more I keep researching my stuff, and what I've been doing is going by through my stuff and then writing down little notes with the dates of what that particular day shows. Like I've got days where it starts out mirroring really heavily, and then within 15-20 minutes I got great visibility and I could see really, really well. So in a short period of time, visibility goes from crap to good. And then I have it the opposite way around, where I had really good visibility, just like I was showing you with that one boat. And then when the boat got to a certain point, the mirroring kicked in and caused that boat to get cut off bottom up. Now, two, I noticed that sometimes when I look directly west, depending on where the sun is, and I always say that angle of light, the way the angle of light hits the water also has effects on what we're actually seeing or how far we can see out into that horizon. And also, if we're getting filtered light with a lot of clouds in the sky filtering out that light, then all of a sudden we can see really, really well. Like the day, geez, Taboo Conspiracy used some of the footage and made a video, but we both deleted it out of our channel, Steel's Rack and Cutter's Rock. I think this one, yeah, this one was a different one that I did on a different day. But here again, you can see this, all of a sudden this water starts showing. And that's where it's transitioning into that mirroring water. So all of this behind it is right here is where I said that the horizon eye line, my eye line, or my eye level to this point right here, to this point is right here. And as I speed this along a little bit, you'll start noticing right here, it's everything above it. I wish I would have backed off of this. Sometimes I have a bad habit of zooming in too close, but you can also see how this is all distorted. It's not round, it's oval. And then you watch this reflection because on this particular day, I had more mirroring, so it caused this to get magnified too, which pulls it in closer. And literally, when these things get magnified like this, it literally pulls this horizon down to where it's pulling everything down. It's strange to try to explain. You know, science says it's pulling all this up, but really what it's doing is it's pulling it down and it's compressing the entire horizon. And this is like looking through the window of heaven right here. That's why I kind of like this footage. All the birds flying in here. You see the waves. You can see some of these waves out here occurring. Where before, remember, you couldn't see nothing in this area. But here, all of a sudden, you see even the channel markers, and these are actually being stretched too. I I think yes, yes, and that is part of that veil is seeing what's hidden. And I think I've done a really good job on finding some of these hidden things or hidden water that's actually out there, but it's like a veil, like you say. And you can see, I think this is water here too. I think this is all water. And like I said, I think this is all reflection. All underneath here is all reflection. And again, everything, it just blends into its own reflection until it goes to that vanishing point. Now, I get trolled a lot, and people tell me I need to go back and learn my math. And you know, my answer to that is math cannot explain everything. And there's things that I don't think that we are supposed to know. Um, you know, God, God has things that He does not want man to know, and that's pretty obvious. And on this footage here too, on that particular day, this particular day that I took this from was also the day where I got all 5 of the racks, or actually 6 of them. And like I say, the farthest one's 11.5 miles out, 0.5 miles out. God, I had one more I wanted to show, but I can't seem to, because I had good visibility, but it was so much distortion. It was crazy. I couldn't even zoom in all the way. I'll save that one for the next time. And what I'll try to do is I'll try to put a lot of this stuff in one folder so that way I don't have to bounce around through my entire 4 terabyte hard drive. Well, I appreciate your channel, Karen, because you allow me a little platform to show some of my observations. And I have a lot of them that I've never even showed that I probably should have, but because I do so many observations, and I tried to put them out there in big chunks, but what I find is, I put an hour video out of observations, and not many people are interested in really using them for study. Now, there are a handful of people out there that love my observations, and they do use them for research, and that's what they're there for.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. I've still got loads of questions.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot of questions. All right, yep, thank you. And if people have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But I will say this one thing, that if trolls come to my channel, I have no problem deleting their comments and blocking them out, and I don't feel one bit bad about it, because their subtle insults are just so annoying. I'm not going to deal with it no more, whether they like it or not. If you cannot be civil about your conversations and leave your subtle insults out, I don't even want to talk to you. But anybody that is interested in, I'm more than willing to try to answer questions if I can.
yeah. It's been nice having you on here, and I love watching your videos and stuff. So I hope you keep on doing it. I just wanted to say I love you, and I love Karen. And take care, and can't wait for next time.
All right, thank you.